To be or not to be? Well, it's not really a question. If your writing is feeling a little basic, a little flat, or even a little boring, this is a great way to zhuzh up your vocabulary and force yourself to be more creative, innovative, and dare I say, interesting. This magic tip is to remove the verb to be as much as possible. Now, in the English language, we use this verb quite a lot. In fact, we have our own special way of conjugating the present tense using to be and adding ing after every verb. I promise I won't get too deep into the grammar weeds this episode, but think I'm walking instead of I walk. It would sound weird to shake your fist at a taxi and yell, "Hey, I walk here!" But if using to be makes English sound more natural, then why are we getting rid of it? It's an easy way to add a lot of information into one little sentence. Writing a book is hard work, and in your first draft, you'll do whatever you can to get the thing on paper. If your main character is a girl with blonde hair, that's all well and good, and in draft 1, we can be satisfied with that. But once you're well into the editing process, a blonde-haired girl isn't all that interesting, and certainly isn't unique. But changing her hair color to purple doesn't necessarily solve that problem. All we have is still just a color. We know nothing of her personality, the setting, or the tone of the story. And yes, maybe you can tell a lot about a person by the color of her hair, but it's certainly not enough. And we can certainly do better. We'll start with this example sentence. Her hair was blonde, the wind was blowing, and it was summer. In this sentence, which is kind of like 3 sentences smushed together, the word was appears 3 times. So what happens when we just take it out? One of those micro sentences can be easily reworded and still make sense, but the other 2, not so much. Her hair blonde, the wind blew, and it summer. Now that sentence sounds completely wrong. Back in elementary English, you may have learned that every sentence must have at least one verb. And this sentence does technically have one. But remember, this is also technically 3 sentences in a trench coat. We're still missing 2 necessary action words. Instead of just deleting was where we can, we need to replace it with something else. This small switch can make a big difference in your story because it forces every sentence to do more work. Instead of using was, we need to find another verb that the hair and summer can be doing. And since summer can't really be doing anything, we have to get creative. Now is a great time to mention my favorite internet thesaurus. This video is not sponsored, but I always like sharing my free writing resources with you so you can make your work really stand out. This is a website called wordhippo.com, and it helps you find that exact right word without too much hassle. Just select what kind of word variant you're looking for and type the closest thing you can think of. This has helped me when I just can't find the exact right verb I'm going for. Now, back to our example sentence. This sentence is entirely descriptive, meaning its job in the story right now is only to let the reader know the girl's hair color, the existence of wind, and the season in which the story takes place. There's no talking or thinking going on, and we're going to keep it that way. But adding action will give you much more opportunity to write something juicy. With action comes movement, and with movement comes emotion. So let's think about the mood or tone in this scene, and how can it be translated into action? What's the hair doing? How is the wind interacting with the scenery? In other words, how can we see or feel the wind? Let's say this is a happy scene. We'll use some happy verbs. I use the verbs danced and lazed because those feel like a nice hot summer afternoon when I have no cares in the world. In another video, I'll explain how you can find those magical words that set the right tone, but for now, our sentence reads, The wind danced across the girl's blonde hair, while the summer sky lazed above. Now, I did something sneaky here. Remember how our first sentence was really 3? In this one, I changed the blonde part of the sentence so it doesn't have a verb at all. Instead, I just used the word as an adjective like normal, shoving it in between the wind dancing and the summer sky. And I did promise not to get into the grammatical weeds here, but how I did that was by making the wind do something to the hair. Now our sentences are really acting together to create one unified picture of the scene. And it's no longer 3 sentences in a trench coat, it's 2. But what if we wanted the emotion to feel tense or suspenseful? Using the verbs tossed, roiled, and break could give this sentence a darker, more violent feeling. Now it reads, "The wind tossed her blonde hair across her face as the sky roiled with thunderclouds, preparing to break in the summer heat." I'll admit I added a detail here. Now there are thunderclouds where there weren't before, but our new sentence most definitely does add some tension in the story, if only a little. And really, I demonstrated how even changing the verbs encouraged me to spice up the scene by adding another element that wasn't there before. Sure, a thunderstorm is a small detail, but sometimes those small details can make a big difference in your description and the realism of your story. I'll put all 3 sentences back on the screen to compare. Now see how either of these new sentences brings more to the scene than the first? Simply by replacing to be, I was forced to add tone, character, and movement that simply wasn't there before. Now all of a sudden, the hair color and weather is exciting to read. Our first sentence was clunky and kind of repetitive, but our second and third had much better flow and used more colorful words that really brought it to life. I'm not going to pretend that these sentences are masterful, but hopefully they can at least demonstrate a point. And I chose this example for the video for a reason. I often see writing advice asking you to describe your characters using more than just hair color and eye color. The idea is that you choose a more unique trait to help your character stand out in the reader's mind. And while that is good advice on its own, it doesn't quite get you all the way there. She had a scar on her left eye is only marginally more interesting than she had blonde hair and blue eyes. But replacing to be gave our small amount of character description much more life, even though it never got beyond the initial information of blondness. And if you added the scar on her left eye, all of a sudden you have an interesting portrait of a character that your reader wants to know. We could take it from, she had a scar on her left eye and blonde hair. It was windy and during summer, to the scar on her left eye throbbed in the summer heat as the wind whipped through her blonde hair. That's the very same sentence, only I've replaced the verbs. You could do the same with just about any character trait, description, or scene setting. And while, yes, it's a good idea to find a unique trait about your character or the setting to draw the reader's attention, you can also write a perfectly exciting book about a blonde-haired girl. Of course, there is a reason to be is one of the most common verbs in our language, and there will be plenty of instances that are probably better off just using it. But even in one page of your manuscript, I bet you can find several sentences to improve using this tip. This week, I'm issuing you a challenge. Find one sentence in your work that uses to be and rewrite it without. Post the resulting sentence in the comments below and I will choose one lucky winner to highlight in the next Better Writing video. Bonus points for creativity, but please keep it PG-13. Your future readers will thank you, and so will I. And since writing is an art and not a science, you might wonder when it's okay to ignore conventional wisdom. Maybe your sentence is better off being short than anything else, and to be will do the trick just fine. Maybe you're writing a book from the perspective of someone who doesn't have a big vocabulary, and using to be is a style choice. If you want a free flowchart that can help you decide when to ignore conventional wisdom and when to just use it, check out my website linked below. If you want to see more videos on how to make your novels sparkle, check out my other videos in the Better Writing series on my channel. Don't forget to like and subscribe to see more in the future, and ring that bell only if you want to be notified when I post next. Thank you so much for watching, friends, and as always, happy writing!